Okay, Year 13s, thank you so much for joining us today. So, Year 12 are just on the precipice of starting the EE process. So, can you just give them some advice on how did you decide which subject area you were going to write in? How did you sort of define that area of study that you were wanting to pursue?
In terms of picking like one subject like maths or English, it's probably best for your higher level subjects for that to be sort of chosen from, which is what I did. But it's kind of open to you and like sort of what you're really interested in. So you can maybe talk to your teachers and just see what kind of options are available to you if you want to go down that route of picking like a certain subject.
Yeah, I'd just like to add it's really important that you choose a topic that you enjoy. So, say for example, for me, I enjoyed both economics and biology. So, I wanted to do a blend of both those subjects, and so I can really look at like the science behind my topic and also say its applications. And doing a world studies EE was something I actually really enjoyed. So, it's really important to choose something that you have a genuine interest in, and you'll be able to write more when you have that passion to write something about it.
And like for me, I my topic that I decided at first wasn't the same as the topic that I did in the end. Like at first, I decided to choose like something to do with just Cantopop, like with one theme. But then I found that it wasn't like there wasn't enough research on it, so I kind of expanded it, and like so you're allowed to change your topic even after you've decided.
And I did something similar to what Georgia said. I picked out of my higher level subjects, but I also kind of incorporated what I wanted to do for university. So I did a visual arts extended essay, and since I want to study architecture for university, so it kind of made sense for me to mix the two together.
It's really important to think like that because your EE is quite important in your sort of university applications because it's such a broad thing which you can talk about in like, for example, your personal statement. It's really important to have that in there as well. So maybe think about having something that is, like Nadia said, really, really relevant to what you want to do in the future.
So once you've defined your area of study, you've got your proposal in and accepted, how did you then go about locating information in your area?
Well, for me, I found actually looking at some publications and journals from universities were actually really helpful. So, say for example, for my interest in like science, a lot of universities had they've written many journals and they had a lot of information from their own research, and it was much more easy to be able to like say use that information and analyze it because you have that resource from a student, so you also have that extra knowledge, which is really helpful.
Personally, as a starting point, I think it's really convenient to use the internet. While you can't write your whole extended essay just based off the internet, I think it's really useful like as a starting point because you can read some basic information. And also I went to the public library to read up on like specific visual arts books, which was helpful as well.
So online, public library.
Most of your research will probably be online. I know mine was. But again, just make sure that you really check what you're reading and who it was published by to make sure that they are credible.
Did you use the school databases?
I
like JSTOR?
personally use JSTOR because I think it's got a lot more stuff on it, but it is quite hard to sort of pick through and see what you really want to look at. I think there's also Questia as well, which is quite a good one. It's not quite as in-depth, but it's got lots of good stuff, so that's quite a good starting point. If you're not quite sure what sort of stuff you're going in for, you can look at Questia because it's a lot more simple to search stuff.
And then you've got lots and lots of information. How did you select what was important and what wasn't?
When I was writing mine, I didn't go in thinking, like, I have a set number of texts that I have to look at. Like, I had maybe 100 journals and texts altogether that I sort of had for my essay. And then it was kind of based on what I needed to do after I'd sort of written part of it. I sort of picked and chose, like, what sort of needed to go in and where, rather than thinking, oh, I've got, like, 5 texts and I'm going to put it in this paragraph and this paragraph. It just sort of came naturally as I was writing.
I think the process of elimination in a way is actually really helpful because again, when you're writing your EE, you are going to have a lot of information there, and obviously you can't put all of that in. You have to choose. So it's important to have a clear mind. So I would say also just organize your thoughts, just maybe brainstorm some ideas, and then start eliminating bulks of information that are just irrelevant from what your topic is.
I think it's also important to have a range of sources. For example, you might have some questionnaires and stuff like that to make it more thorough and reliable. So yeah.
You did primary research and used
Yeah.
questions.
Yeah, I made a questionnaire.
And you've touched on this already, so you've talked then about how you organised it. So Georgia said things sort of came quite organically. Zara, as she was writing, Zara was talking about kind of eliminating things. Did you keep going back to your research question? What about sort of the organisation? Did your supervisor help you with that as well?
Yeah, I found for me, my supervisor was really helpful in helping me know exactly, say, obviously have to write the essay, but them giving you that help for how to structure it, it narrows your all your research down in a way, so you know what information to choose. So yeah, it's really important to have an open discussion with your supervisor because they really can help you in choosing, say, what information is relevant and irrelevant to what you're writing about.
And we talked about organising your ideas. What about organising your time? Because the Year 12s will have a similar timeline to you, so theirs will be due in October. When did you do the majority of your work?
I got going straight away, and that's much easier said than done, but this is not something you want to do the night before. I mean, I'm guilty of maybe writing more than half in a short time frame, but I think really this isn't something that you can just leave because it's really, really important. And in terms of how it's marked, you really want to make sure that you're on it and getting it done to the best of your ability, because it can be marked quite differently from your supervisor. So just make sure that you're happy with your work and that it's done and it's really, really thorough from the outset.
I think Year 12 is a busy year, so it's inevitable that sometimes you'll struggle to find time to do the extended essay because it's not part of a specific subject, so you can't just say, oh, I'll allocate 5 hours of my time for say maths and do my extended essay. So but I do agree that as much as you can do, try and get it done as early as possible.
It is quite a long process of writing as well.
Don't leave it to the last 12 hours to try and write the whole thing.
I mean, we still haven't uploaded our actual EE to the IB, so and this is nearly February, so it is a long process, which means that it's sometimes hard to think what's going to happen next year and how much time you really don't have. So I think just making sure that it's written in Year 12 is the most important advice I would give, I think.
And then were there any challenges with how to present that? Because it's a real sort of piece of academic writing where you've got to do in-text citation and MLA8 works cited.
Yeah, I think it's really important to keep in mind, it's not just some random work you've been given in class. It's really formal. You have to make sure everything is properly MLA8 cited, because even if you say forget to mention one source, it can cause complications later. So it's really important to also do it early, because it can be a hassle to have to always then go back at the end to fix it. So it's just important to keep that in mind from the start and making sure you're sourcing everything.
Cite all the time throughout, not just at the end, because you don't know what you might have not looked at before. Just make sure that you reference continually as you go through. And in terms of the academic register as well, while it is quite a formal piece of work, it's also your piece of work. So try not to be scared of having your voice and your opinion throughout, because it is your essay at the end of the day. So it has to come from you, which makes it really authentic and really original as well. And I think also another point on that is structure. You can make it quite flexible, so have an intro, have a body, have a conclusion, but then have sections. Mine is very heavily sectioned, which I think made it more my essay than just here's an intro, here's a body, here's a conclusion. It felt logical as I was writing it to put in these different sections, even if you're not told, oh, you need to have section A, B, C, D. It can just kind of flow as you write as well.
And then last question, so if we look back on this process now, you're about to upload your EEs. So 2 things really. What did you personally learn as a student from this experience? And what would your advice be to the Year 12s?
I think the most important thing about writing the EE, like rather than just actually writing it, is choosing the right topic for yourself. Make sure it's something that you're interested in, because if you're interested in it, it'll make the writing process a lot easier, and you won't find it as much of a, like you won't feel like you're being forced to write an essay. It'll be for like your own interest. So in that sense, it won't be as difficult, I guess.
I think for me, I really learned that more about time management and how it's really important, again, to be organized from the start, because you have to have that firm foundation, so then it'll be easier for you only later on when you have to write it. So it's just, yeah, looking back, I think a way I could have done better is say maybe making sure that my time was more organized, because that will make a difference.
I sort of learned how to structure my ideas, how to write quite formally, but also my topic really spurred me on to pick my course at uni, which is what my EE is sort of based on. So it really can bring out your passions. And again, as everyone says, just make sure that it's something that you want to write, because it's going to be so hard, you know, later on if you really don't like your topic. So I think, again, as we've said, just make sure that you want to do this essay.
I also learned a lot about my topic, because I was genuinely really interested in my topic, and I also learned a lot about how to write a research paper and stuff, because previously I hadn't really done a lot of research and analyzed stuff, but so it's a really good process, I think.
What could West Island have done to improve the way it was delivered to you?
Personally, I feel like sometimes my supervisor wasn't very sure about how to hand things in. Like when I felt like I needed to ask a question, my supervisor didn't always know. Maybe it was because of the new system, but I feel like maybe they need to know a little bit more about that, because sometimes I wouldn't know who to turn to ask for help, because if my supervisor didn't know if this is the right place to turn it in, then I didn't really know who would know.
I think for me, I was kind of lucky that I had a supervisor who could help, had insight into my topic basically. But I know a lot of people had supervisors who were completely in an unrelated field, I guess, to their topic, and I know they struggled a lot because they couldn't get that help in a way, or the help they were giving, it wasn't in that perspective, I guess, so it was much harder for them.
I think at the beginning I could have done with more help of where to find your research, the actual websites, and seeing more examples of really good work. Perhaps not even from West Island, but just any IB examples that are really up there in the top grades. I would have liked to have seen what they did and how I could incorporate those techniques into my own piece, I think.
Yeah, I think that because my supervisor sometimes she didn't really know about the time schedules and stuff, so a lot of times
What, the internal deadlines?
no, the meetings, and so we kind of skipped a lot of meetings, and I feel it wasn't very organized, so yeah.
Okay. Are you telling me that you think it's quite low down staff priority? Are they teaching their subject and then they're kind of EE's tacked on?
Yeah.
I think,
honest,
I mean,
yeah.
obviously certain supervisors get into it a lot more and I think are very proactive, but I know that it's very different for lots of different people. I've spoken to people who've hated doing the EE, who had a supervisor that they felt, didn't care about their essay, but then my own experience was really positive. So I think there is a lot of difference between, yeah, for sure.
Because your relationship with the supervisor is really just up to you. Some supervisors prefer to have a more kind of hands-on approach, where you write the essay and they kind of just go over it and give you feedback afterwards. Whereas I know there are some supervisors who guide you along the way and tell you each step what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong. And neither of those are a good thing or a bad thing, but it's just different for everyone sometimes. So it's not not everyone can have the same experience.
I think also right at the start of the process, having more advice of how to pick a topic, how it can affect what you write in your personal statement, basically saying why the EE is important and why you should really care about it. I felt as though I started thinking, oh well, I have to do it, so whatever. But I think as I sort of progressed, I sort of realised, hey, this is really interesting, my topic. But I think having more sessions at the start about why you should really get into it and sort of put it into context a bit more.
Also, I don't know if this is just me, but you know how we had those 2 days of...
Those
If
really late this year.
If I'm being honest, for me, I don't really think I was productive. Well, I just found in the sense if you're given a whole day that's like so many hours just to do one thing. For me, I personally can't work like that. Like I have to do like little bits of stuff and like spaced, but this was just a whole chunk, and I didn't really.
It off the list, going, we've got to give them some time
yeah,
there.
like
Okay.
I felt I needed that time to say work on my IA study for my tests because those are like, you know. So I just think, for me,
It was both like at the end of the year.
yeah. So
It's even later this year. It's like 2 weeks before the end of term.
yeah, so
Yeah, no
I
one's
don't.
going to be.
Yeah.
Because I think I worked at home during those 2 days, and that was really good for me. But I know that, like, you know, for you, for example,
Yeah.
it wasn't the most productive.
Yeah.
But I think having that kind of time is good because you can sort of see your supervisor and dip in and out. But I think, keep it, but maybe.
Yeah, because
no.
there wasn't a lot of like teacher supervision like as much as we normally get in
That's
classes. So like in a sense people didn't really feel as pressured or motivated to kind of focus on the same thing throughout the whole time, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah, like I felt like our supervisor, well, for me and like a few people I know, like they weren't really accessible, I guess, during those days. And so then you're just sitting around there, and then, like Nadia said, there's no firm supervision like when you have to do it. So it just ended up like, you know, a bit
Like once
slacking
you
off, I
once you
guess.
get off track, it's hard to
Yeah.
get back on
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much for giving up your time. Thanks for speaking to us today, Year 13. So Year 12 at this current moment are thinking about putting their proposals in for their EE areas. Can you think about how you decided on your proposal areas? How did you define the issues you were interested in?
Well, I think in general, for me personally, I had quite an unorthodox journey on like selecting my E. It was quite unnatural and not normal for many of the economics supervisors. So I think what was key was like doing research or deeper digging into the actual topic in order to gain like an actual understanding, and knowing that there is some kind of source material that you can work off of instead of going into it blindly and then figuring out halfway through your journey that this topic actually is difficult. I have no content for it, and then you have to switch to a whole new topic. So I think you should get a good understanding of the topic and find out where there is source material, and then move to your next step.
Yeah, for me, I think it was kind of different because I already knew what I was going to do. I knew that I was going to do something sports science related, and so as I went through my course in Year 12, I kind of figured out the things that I liked, the things that I didn't, and eventually I got to the point where I realized that, I want to do my research on sports psychology because that interested me a lot. And so from there, I just sort of looked through the textbook. I figured out kind of like generally what I would need to do, and then from after that, I kind of just went further. I dug deeper. I used the databases. I used Google Scholar, which is a fantastic resource for you. And basically, I just sort of looked into all of this sort of different journal articles that you could have. Yeah?
We'll come to the locating question in a
Oh,
moment.
okay.
So just on that proposal.
A big thing for me was doing something that I was interested in. If I didn't have an interest in it, it was kind of like pointless. So there was just a topic we did in geography, and it was like about inequality in education. And as soon as we did it, I was like, I'm really interested in this, and I thought I could go further with it. And I went so far that I actually made an interdisciplinary approach with the World Studies extended essay. So just really rooted from my personal interest in it. And also there was loads of resources on that specific topic, and I think that was really important. Just from the start, I knew that I would have access to lots of different types of resources, so yeah.
And for me, it was kind of more targeted because I knew I wanted to do psychology in university, so I kind of thought the EEE would be a good opportunity to try out writing a really long essay for psychology, which is what you'd have to do in university. So it was kind of a way for me testing is this really what I want to do, and it kind of helped me on that journey to decide where I want to go after high school.
Perfect. So you've got your supervisor, you've got your topic. How did you go about locating information?
So for me, what I did is, first of all, I looked at our sports science textbook. So I kind of looked at the general knowledge that I needed to know about. And then after that, I used the library databases. I used Google Scholar. I kind of figured out the keywords that brought up the right articles for me and the right articles regarding my topic specifically, because I had quite a specific question. And so from there, I just kind of used the different keywords in different strings, and eventually I got the articles that I needed, found the information that I needed, as well as did some primary research by myself.
I think personally for me, my EE relied more on primary information rather than secondary information. So rather than him, I would go about interviewing people. My topic was on India, so I would just talk to my dad about it, or just talk to whenever I travel to India, I'd just go and talk to them about the actual topic specifically, and then kind of go into deeper detail when I actually start getting into the real meat of the actual essay. And I think you do generally need a good baseline for the actual topic at hand. Like, you need to have a good understanding for the topic, so you can't just go into it blindly assuming that you can just figure out what to do as soon as you get there. You kind of need to have a good structure in the first place.
Kind of said the same things like Aaron said what I was going to say, but one of the things that really helped, I looked online at books that were related to my topic, and then I managed to find this book which has loads of different contributors to the book, and then there's loads of sources at the back where they got their information from, and that really helped me.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you look at the citations in the journals that you use, you find a journal, then you can look at the citations within the journal.
Yeah.
And especially if you find a piece of information that's got a citation
that's
in
so
text
helpful.
citation, it's great because you can go on that and you can basically you can almost jump down a big hole following all of these citations until you get to a piece that is oh my god.
Okay, perfect. So you've just touched on my next question. How do you go about that difficult task of selecting the key information you need for your extended essay?
Well, for me, I was doing psychology, and for psychology, one thing I didn't know is that it's really, really research heavy. It's probably the most research heavy of all the EEs. I don't know about that, maybe. And then, so what I did was I had my general question and my topic of area that I wanted to study, and I kind of at first took as much research as I could and then refined it later, because after I took all the research, I researched things that I didn't really know I needed to do, and looking at the huge well of research kind of guided where my essay was going to go. So it was helpful to research big and then cut down, I think.
Yeah, I mean, because of the nature of my question, I found it quite difficult to find something that was specific, because there hadn't actually been very much. And also I was looking at personality, so there was so much different information that you could, some of it was oh yes it works, some of it was oh no it wasn't. So I ended up taking the two together and I looked at contrasting views. But I mean, honestly, finding the stuff was probably it's one of the hardest things, as well as reading these journal articles, condensing the information. What worked for me was I actually printed the articles out and I read them probably about 5 times each, and I highlighted all of the different quotes or pieces of information that I thought were really useful.
Excellent. So again, you touched on that next question. So
Quite good at that.
You've done some brilliant
Aaron.
research. You've then worked at selecting it. How did you go about that process? Because it's 4,000 words, isn't it? How did you go about organising that information? Any tips?
I think, funnily enough, on my first draft, I actually it was completely disorganized. Everything all over the place. I had loads of information, and even my supervisor came up to me and she said, you know a lot about the topic, but you really don't know anything about how to structure an essay. So in my second draft, I decided to actually kind of break down each component of the essay into the real raw bits of it, and then structure it from then on out, and really go in depth with the structuring, because I think that's a key factor in presenting the essay, because it can make or break a grade. If you actually know how to present the essay. Some supervisors may not actually understand what you're saying unless you properly present it.
So do you mean sections?
Yeah, I'd say I sectioned mine off a lot, and then yeah.
I think personally what really helped me was because I had loads of problems with organising my essay as well. What my supervisor did, she was create subtitles, and I got rid of the subtitles eventually, but in terms of just writing the essay at the start, I had subtitles for each bit so that it wasn't all over the place, and then I got rid of those I can't speak. The subtitles later on, and it was a lot like clearer in my head because it was just all over the place.
Yeah, I think I agree with the subtitles because for me, when I had the research, I kind of knew it was in 2 main sections, but after that, I didn't know how to section it. And I think just like the research stage is really important because I was able to read a few studies and automatically see links between them, which would make like a short paragraph. And then I kept just like seeing links between things, which made paragraphs, which I could then section into like wider.
Yeah, I think I did something quite unorthodox, is that I did all of my research without actually planning the way that my essay was going to be laid out first. And as I did my research, I did the same thing as Kyle would. I would sort of link different points together, and eventually your research kind of gives you like a point per paragraph. So you'll have all of this research that all links to the same thing, and then all of this that all links to. So eventually, if you follow the right process, eventually you're going to get to that point where your essay is almost going to structure itself just because of the way that your research is come together.
Okay, and so when it came to the final presentation, were you confident in putting that piece of academic writing together in terms of your citations, your works cited list?
Well, I think, thank you, Miss Ellison, our citations are going to be pretty impressive. We get a lot of guidance through the whole process. The plagiarism checkers are fantastic. It helps you to realize where you've missed a citation, maybe where you just need to add an in-text in. I think the whole sort of, you come through school, you're introduced to this process really early, and I think it just sticks with you. You just keep going and you just keep doing it.
I think it's about the quality of the citations as well. Like, you don't want all your citations to be exactly the same, like all from like Wikipedia. Obviously, they don't encourage you to use Wikipedia, but you know, you want them all to be like on the same website or the same article. You want them to be like one from a book, one from a journal, whatever, one from a novel entry, one from a literary article or something. So it should be a good variety of different sources you use.
I found the MLA like formatting, whatever you want to call it. What's it called? MLA. I found it really difficult because at my previous school, I'd never done citations in my life because I just didn't have any subjects where I had to cite things. So I actually found it difficult, but there's like a lot on the web, like on the school website, on the library portal or whatever, that really helped. Also, like, yeah, that was the main thing. That I found it difficult, not gonna lie. Like, it didn't come naturally in any way. So yeah, that was.
I think that like the MLA 8 citations at like the works cited list is kind of maybe the easiest part because like you have websites that can help you format that.
Yeah.
But one thing that's tricky that you might not think is the in-text citations. Like I had a little crisis this morning. I thought I was gonna like fail my EE because the formatting of the in-text citations needs to be really like specific, and so just make sure you feel confident in that before you start.
Yeah, I think the one thing about in-text citations is a lot of people forget that they exist. And also, you've written 4,000 words, and so it's natural that maybe once or twice you're going to put something in, and then you'll say, oh, I'm going to go back to that and put the citation in later. So I think what really helps is as soon as you put a quotation or a piece of information that you've taken from somewhere else, highlight it in a different color, or make it bold, or just do something that's going to make it stand out. So when you proofread your essay, you don't try to skim over it, and it's just like, oh, it's there, it's gone. You actually see it and you go, oh, I need to put something there. I mean, that helped me. That pretty much saved me about 4 times.
I wish I'd done that.
I put mine like all caps in red.
Yeah.
Psyched.
Okay, excellent. So let's just reflect. Let's look back. Okay, so what have you learned, or any top tips? So what have you learned in terms of your skill? What have you developed? What advice would you give?
Do it. Don't put it off. Just do the essay. Don't put it off. I mean, you get all summer to do it, and a lot of people will go, oh, I have so much time. Just get it done. Kind of find a space where you're going to sit down and you're going to go, okay, it's going to be finished by this date. And it just takes off all the pressure because you have your own deadline and you know that you're going to work towards that, and it just makes it easier.
Sorry.
You go.
Okay, in terms of what I've learned, like I was saying before, how I was kind of pretty sure I wanted to do psychology at uni, and then I think from writing an EE in psychology, it helped me learn that is what I want to do, because it was like, you know, you're going to be spending a lot of hours on it. It's 4,000 words. You have to enjoy it to be able to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I actually did the same thing Mine's a world studies EE with geography and English language, and what I focused on, which was like inequality in education. I'm going to study geography as well, so that helped me. Like, I know I want to study geography, and I kind of almost know what area of geography I'd like to go further into. And again, going back to that, like being interested in it, I think that's a really big thing. I think I would have lost a lot of motivation if I wasn't interested in it. And in terms of actually like doing the essay, I think do it in sections. Like, don't, like, yeah, you might be the kind of person to do it all in one, but I think you need to like break it down over the summer or whatever, because if you try and do it all in one, like, it's really hard to keep your ideas clear, and like you feel like, yeah. And also research takes ages. I thought my research took ages, like in general.
It's like the hardest part.
It really does.
Yeah.
I think what's key, or like what people should know, is that like they should learn that it's not the end of the world if they don't do well on the E, or it's not like the end of the world if they find it difficult to write an essay or to actually structure the essay, because it's just like preparation for what you're gonna do in the future for university and stuff like that. So you're just experimenting and learning different things about that entire process. So don't be afraid to, once again, reiterating on Aaron's point, don't be afraid to do what you want to do. And reiterating on Jenny's earlier point, do what you enjoy. Don't do something just for the sake of it, or don't do something because it's easy. Do something that you actually truly enjoy doing.
Can I just contradict that slightly? Be careful what you choose, especially for world studies essay, because it's an interdisciplinary essay, so you have two disciplinaries, and like make sure that there's actually connection, because I did geography and English language, and I found it really difficult to have that connection and to actually form an interdisciplinary itself. So although I really enjoyed it and it was interesting, part of me is like, I made my life more difficult, and you do need to pass the extended essay in order to pass IB.
Yeah, I think it's so important because, I mean, you have this 4,000 word essay. You've never written anything this size before, so of course it's scary. That's fine. I mean, you have the right to be kind of worried about it. But school gives you so much guidance. There's so much stuff out there that's going to help you write there, help you through the process. And of course, Miss Ellison is always there to help you with your citations.
Thank you. Now listen, what could we do better in terms of our process? Just be frank, what could we do better?
I think, well, can I?
Yeah,
go ahead.
World studies, I found it incredibly difficult. Like it's just such a new concept within like extended essays and stuff, and I think somebody should have told me don't do English language and geography, just do geography EE, because it's still like, so I'm like, I don't know what this is gonna get, because it just felt a bit ambiguous, the whole thing. I don't know.
That they weren't naturally linked.
Yeah, like there are links, but I just feel like there should be not like. Yeah, I don't think you should stop students, but at the same time, I think students should be advised on what two subjects they should take, or what like two disciplinaries they choose for their world studies essay, because English language and like geography is like, it's a bit like, whereas if you did like maths and physics, like I think there's a bit more of a.
So like stuff that complements each other.
Yeah,
And
I think that was just a big thing.
I think adding on to the world studies thing, because I initially did start with the world studies, I think the school makes it seem like really like tantalizing, like you can do whatever you want with the world studies, but I think it could be a little more like directed to us that there are very specific boxes you have to fit into world
like
studies.
the fact that it has to be localized and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So I would just maybe make that seem a bit more realistic.
Yeah, I
It
think
is-
world studies was a challenge. I should have just done.
yeah. Because
a
I
subject.
actually kind of changed to psychology because my EE wasn't really working out. I wasn't really enjoying
It's
it.
almost too wide. It's too vague. The whole thing. It needs to be more specific. That's IB, not school. But I think students need to
Be aware of
be
that.
aware of that more.
And I found that my supervisor, like, not naming names, but for my world studies supervisor, wasn't really sure either. Like, neither of us were really sure
Yeah.
how to do it. So I think the teachers also need to be sure how to world studies
I don't
works.
blame them. Like,
yeah,
they're-
it's
yeah.
I think
so much
the other thing that's quite important is sticking to the deadlines that school sets. I mean, school sets certain deadlines for you to do certain things, but a lot of the time, some supervisors can be lenient, some are less lenient. So, I mean, it all goes on wisdom, and you'll get that like cause for concern, or you get like a green or a yellow. But I think maybe they need to be sort of enforced more, or you need to actually have these checkpoints when when they've been scheduled by school, because it just helps you along the process if you meet every deadline instead of sort of racking it all up till the end and then you have to do all of these things all at once. So I think, yeah. I mean, the other top tip that I have is you have 2 days to do it during that little period of digital literacy, whatever
Yeah,
it's called now.
this year.
But you have 2 days to just sit down, do your essay. It's like God-given time.
Yeah, can I just add on to Aaron's
Yeah.
point? Like, I definitely agree with the first thing you said. Like, I think supervisors should definitely be like a lot more involved in the actual process, or at least a lot more enforce the deadlines, or like keep track with the students. Like, I know there's supposed to be an element of independence with the students' work, but a lot of students don't actually get that work ethic done, get that work. Notice the amount of effort you actually have to put into it until like the later stages, and then they end up panicking and they end up rushing the entire thing in the last few days, last weeks or so. So I think it definitely should be more enforced, regimented thing.
I just have one last thing. So I think how I'm not sure what it was, but do the teachers read it like when it's 1,000 words in or something?
I can't
6
remember.
pages, first 6 pages.
I think
Something like
like
that.
maybe you disagree, but maybe you could stretch that to like once you're halfway through your essay, because I know some people that had done their whole draft and the whole draft wasn't really in the right direction, and it seems like pretty devastating to have to reconfigure your whole essay if the draft isn't right. So I think instead of saying like go do a whole draft and then come back to us, maybe there could be more like a
Yeah, like that's
There'll
what
be
I
like
mean
a
in
halfway point
sections.
or something.
Sections really
Sections,
helped me like to
definitely.
do, like my intro was a bit dodgy, like the first part of mine, so I redid that whole bit, and then I started doing other chunks of it, like rather than all at once, and just checking up on it as I went through.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of jumped around in my EE as well. I mean, I did my introduction, finished it, redid it, and then I started my main bodies. And as I was writing my main bodies, I would go, oh, there's something else that I need to, and so I'd keep jumping back and forth. And so at one point, I had like four just unfinished paragraphs that didn't have a concluding sentence, and it was kind of weird because you'd read it and it'd be like, oh, and then the next point. So yeah, sections are really helpful.
Yeah, I think of with E is actually like a textbook. Like you just kind of have like a chapter, and then like in the chapters, little like segments, little sections,
Yeah,
and that would be like
makes sense.
the little like chapters of your actual essay.